It's always a pleasure to witness the Russian Resurrection Film Festival, and I'm so pleased that it is happening as a mini festival in December 17th to the 21st. And it's always a pleasure to talk to the director of the Russian Resurrection Film Festival, Nicholas Maksymow. Nicholas, welcome again to Movie Metropolis.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for your ongoing support.
Always pleased. And Russian cinema, of course, is so interesting. Tell me about the challenges that you've faced and how difficult it has been for you over the last year or two, trying to get a Russian film festival going again in Australia.
Well, it has been very difficult. I mean, you know, if I would say otherwise, it would be an understatement. But because, first of all, there is absolutely no funding for, you know, a community festival such as ours at the moment. And I say that from, you know, all spectrums. So we used to get support from the Russian Ministry of Culture, and, you know, they have ceased all festival funding for the last 2 years. Oh. I hope it's back next year, but, you know, nobody can answer that question. You know, and as you know, dealing with a foreign government organization makes it even harder. But we also hit some roadblocks, even with some local sort of, you know, funding and grant money. So, you know, Multicultural New South Wales, for instance, decided not to run their grant program this year. So, yeah, it's been very hard to source, you know, funding for the festival. So that's the first hurdle, I suppose. And then obviously the second hurdle was, okay, even if we do run a mini film festival, 1 week it's on, the next week it's off, you're in lockdown, you're out of lockdown. Yeah, it's been a challenge.
Absolutely, and yeah, incredible that you're here to talk about a mini festival that we're about to witness. So, before we talk about the films and this mini festival that's happening in 4 cities across Australia, what's happened to the Russian film industry over the last year or two with COVID and so on? How is that progressing?
It's progressing in the sense that, you know, projects that were started, you know, prior to COVID are sort of getting finished, if you know what I mean. However, I do understand that new projects have been delayed. So anything that was sort of scheduled to start sort of this year, I believe, has been pushed back. Sort of, they were hoping towards the end of this year, but you know, we're coming out of lockdown. Russia's just gone into lockdown, you know, as I believe, you know, a lot of European countries have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very much been a difficult 2 years because, as I said, that they have been able to finish the projects that were started pre-COVID, or maybe even, you know, at the beginning of the outbreak of COVID. But they have only later trying to, you know, basically find out what's going to happen to the projects that were pushed back, you know, and that haven't started. And also from a theatrical and a release point of view, it's been very much a mirror image of Hollywood, in the sense that even Russian films, you know, that were scheduled to have, say, a release date, are getting pushed back. You know, I'm a James Bond fan and couldn't sort of even come to terms and understand with the fact that James Bond, you know, No Time to Die was put back, you know, 21 months or something. So, yeah.
And is there still government support for the Russian film industry? I often wonder whether Putin, for example, does support the industry.
Yes, there is still support for the filmmakers. And, you know, I don't know the ins and outs, but whether it has been reduced or not, but I do know that the industry is still getting, you know, government funding for a lot of the projects. And, you know, that's obviously helped the local film makers. And the other bit of interesting thing is that they're also starting to get quite a bit of private dollars being thrown at the Russian film industry. The owner of the soccer club, what's the Russian oligarch's name? It slipped me.
That's right.
Yeah, basically a UK-based club, you know, Russian oligarch, Abramovich, isn't it? I think is his name. So I know that he's throwing a lot of his sort of, you know, private money into the film industry. So there is, similar to Hollywood, there is starting to appear this sense of, you know, product placement in films, because companies see it as a means of advertising. And I think it's probably going to become more prominent, you know, as we come out of COVID. Yeah.
Okay, a borscht in every scene.
Possibly, if it's privately made and
okay. All right. So now the festival, you've been able to put 6 films together, I've noticed, and it's running in December in 4 cities, and in Melbourne, December 17th to the 21st. How did you source the 6 films and decide on them for the festival?
Okay, so probably 4 of the 6 films we had penciled in at basically the beginning of this year. So we had them penciled in, and, you know, every 2-3 months, I was just sort of touching base with the distributors and or the producers just to, you know, give them updates to say, you know, we plan to hold a festival, and then no, the festival's off, and then, you know, no, we'll be doing a film festival again. And so, yeah, it was just a matter of keeping in touch with the distributors. And the other couple of films we sort of were able to pick up right at the end, basically, maybe even sort of 4 to 5 weeks ago, when we finally understood that we were able to hold a mini film festival. We sort of locked in the last 2 titles. Yeah.
Okay, and we should mention that the website is RussianResurrectionFF.com.
No, it's just RussianResurrection.com. There's
no FF, right? Okay,
yeah.
RussianResurrection.com, and the details are on there. So let's talk about the 6 films, starting with a film called 100 Minutes, which looks like it's a war drama.
It is a war drama. It's based on a short novel written by Solzhenitsyn. Yeah, the you know, Nobel Prize winner, Russian historian who obviously you know, fled Russia and then returned, interestingly, under Putin's reign, which or it could have been at the end of Yeltsin's reign, but it's interesting that he ended up staying under Putin in Russia. And this is basically, yeah, a story of, you know, some war heroes who, after fighting in the Second World War, you know, in Nazi Germany, when they returned home, they were obviously labeled as traitors to the Soviet Union and had to spend further isolation confinement in the Gulag system in the Soviet Union. So it's a very harrowing take on a probably unpleasant is probably the wrong word, but you can help me there, you know, a tarnished bit of history that, you know, you don't sort of really want to hear or know about, because it's so haunting and harrowing. Yeah.
And in fact, there are so many stories about what happened during the war, and I'm so glad that filmmakers are able to look at those stories and those issues and make them public, so that people like myself and others are aware of them. And And I suppose it sounds to me as if it sounds a bit like One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, that sort of.
Well, it is. It's actually, but that's what the film is based on.
Ah.
Yeah, and actually the Russian title is Ivan Denisovich, but for some reason the international or the title for the foreign market has been selected as 100 Minutes. Why, I don't know, because people that know a bit about history would probably know who Ivan Denisovich was. So
Yes. I find it so interesting how distributors sometimes decide to change titles, especially of foreign language films, because they think English-speaking audiences or whatever will not understand the subject matter unless they have a punchy title of some sort.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's 100 Minutes, or Ivan Denisovich, as part of the Russian Resurrection Film Festival. Now, as a contrast, it looks like there's a very a nicely themed film, a film called A Dog Named Palma.
Yes, that's sort of a family adventure, so to speak. It's basically a relationship between a 12-year-old boy and a dog that gets left at the airport by its owner. And the boy and the dog basically develop this friendship, and the boy sort of will go to no ends to try and find the dog's rightful owner. And so it's an adventure film. It is a bit of a tearjerker. That's probably as much as you'd sort of want to say, but yeah, it's a moving family film that touches on sort of the right levels, about the human spirit fighting, for something that you feel strongly about. So yeah, it's got some sort of strong moral themes all the way through. So if you're into a family adventure with with a tissue box, then highly recommended.
Okay. Sounds like the way you described it, though, there's a subtext of political issues emerging about fighting for what you believe in and so on. And just think of what's happening in politics in Russia. Not that we want to discuss politics in Russia, but
Yeah, I would probably say no, but
okay.
That, though, probably is a pretext to one of our other films, which I might touch upon right now, because you mentioned, the political context. And that film is called House Arrest.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, off memory, it screens in Melbourne on the Sunday, and it's actually screened as part of the Uncertain Regard at Cannes earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of the films that we managed to lock in very late in the piece. It's a film that hasn't been released in Russia yet. Mm. And what I'm about to tell you would probably then indicate whether it will actually get a release in Russia. Because basically it's the portrait of a man persecuted by the Russian state. And so this particular professor, he's a professor at a university, decides to bring out onto social media the corrupt nature of the mayor of the town that, of where he lives, and the university is part of this, provincial town. And this particular professor decides to bring out onto social media the corrupt nature and the bribes that this particular mayor decides to partake in. And this particular professor is then confined to house arrest. And the film is actually all shot in this one room in the the apartment of this professor. And basically it's him conversing with his lawyers, trying to work out how they're going to defend, the actions that he partook, because, as you know, anything in Russia that criticizes the Russian political state would be, seen in a very negative context. And so, yeah, it develops from there. But what's interesting is that there's lots of sub-themes in the film. So we don't only find out about, what he's done and the way he sort of, portrays decides to expose the corrupt nature of the mayor, is he simply drew a caricature of this mayor having a sexual sort of relationship with an ostrich on social media.
Yeah.
So on face value, it seems very superficial and something that probably, wouldn't get, the time of day, if it happened, I suppose, here, and probably wouldn't even get the time of day in Russia, because it would simply be labeled as someone, gone mad. But as I said, what I really enjoyed is that the themes that then sort of developed on from that. So the relationship with his family, and, they're trying to persuade him to, apologize and sort of all will be forgiven, and you can go back to work and serve as a professor again, which he wants to do. But yeah, he's not prepared to, apologize and things like that. So there's lots of themes that start developing. And yeah, it's anything that I think gets, into the main program of Khan is worth a look, so.
And film sounds like it's full of metaphors and social and political commentary. Sounds a very interesting film, House Arrest. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely, as I said, definitely a film that I think, it's a true example of Russian art house cinema. Russian art house cinema is all about, making statements.
Mm-hmm.
Often it's a subject matter that will appeal to, festival goers rather than, people that go to watch a film released, widely.
Sure.
Hence my hesitation. Will it get released in Russia or not? I don't know.
Uh-huh. So it's not you're not suggesting it'll be censored because of its underlying political commentary?
I don't think it'll get censored because, there have been other films in the last 5 years that have probably been more critical of the political system that have had release. But it's definitely, I think, an interesting film directed by Alexei German Jr. His father probably, is a director that many, people that, like Soviet cinema would sort of reflect on. You may have heard of, we did a film about maybe 10 years ago as part of the World War II retrospective called Trial on the Road.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that rings a bell.
I think it does, yeah.
So yeah, very good director, and this son is obviously following in the footsteps of his father,
Okay, sounds good. I look forward to seeing it. Now, there's a film here called Dr. Lisa, which sounds quite intriguing, and I'm guessing it's a female director?
It's a female director. It's loosely based on a true story. And basically, Dr. Lisa was a doctor, I believe, maybe 10, 15 years ago in obviously, present Russian society, that set up this medical organization that would help and support people that weren't able to get the medical attention they needed from, the Medicare or the government-based medical system.
Mhm.
So it's about people that are homeless. It's about people that have been diagnosed with cancer, and basically, realize that there is no point of return for them. But, even getting their hands on some morphine, to put them out of misery for the last, 4 or 5 days of their life is always quite difficult, in a system, I suppose, a country where, the state medical system is not as developed as it is, say, in Australia. So it's actually probably what's the word I'm looking for? It's a statement against, the private medical systems that exist in Russia, in the United States, for instance, where, people that aren't as fortunate as, say, me and you, and that aren't able to get, pay the big dollars.
Yeah.
And obviously, because the state doesn't have a proper run system, these people are often left to look after themselves. And the film is about this doctor that basically started this organization. And it's all basically set in 24 hours. And we sort of get to meet this doctor who is trying to manage, 4 or 5 cases that have sprung up overnight at the same time as her preparing for a wedding anniversary dinner with her family that evening. So it's how she's juggles her day in order to try and help these people that aren't as fortunate as she was, or maybe,
Okay, interesting story. Okay, sounds good. And the last 2 films, one looks like it's a thriller on the edge about female fencers.
Correct. Yep. It's a sports drama thriller. Again, loosely based on a true story. But as you know, with these sporting dramas, they do tend to add a bit of color to make the story a bit more interesting. But it's basically it's about a female fencer who is an Olympic champion and is getting ready, to compete at the next Olympics. But there's this new up and coming young female star that thinks that, she has it all and the skills, and she basically puts up the challenge to the Olympic champion to sort of say, I'm going to take your spot. And yeah, it's sort of, that's where the thriller element, I suppose, sets in, because the two of them sort of turn to measures that normal athletes probably wouldn't turn to in order to achieve their means, if you know what I mean. So, their goal is to compete at the Olympics, regardless of the cost, so to speak. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. And the final film looks like it might be a bit of a satire, called The Servant, not to be confused with the Joseph Losey film of the 60s. This is a new Russian film, which sounds quite intriguing.
Yeah, it's actually a light-hearted comedy. And the reason it's actually the opening night film in both Sydney and Melbourne. The reason I suppose we chose The Servant is that, after such a difficult 2021, I think, the best way to get people to go and enjoy themselves and have a glass of wine, after seeing a film is if it's a comedy. So, and, over the years, unfortunately, we haven't had the opportunity to open a Russian film festival with a comedy. But this year we found sort of a comedy which I believe, fits the bill. It was the highest grossing Russian film of 2020, so last year in Russia. So it was released just prior to the pandemic breaking out in Russia, and did really well at the box office. It's basically sort of, it's not a rags to riches story, but it's a riches to rags story, if you sort of don't mind the pun. It's basically about a rich oligarch whose son basically thinks he's above the law. And one fine evening, the police have had enough, and they have basically called this oligarch in and said, even though you support us with money and bribes and private, yes, your son has gone, beyond what is accepted, this time round. So you need to put a stop to this. And so this father basically concocts a plan which hopefully will teach his son what it is considered to be a good citizen, what is considered to be a good father, what is considered to be, a good, family Samaritan. Yeah, so it's a film about, the importance of having, good values, and it's important to set examples for others so they can look up to you, so to speak. So it's basically teaching this son the rights versus, the wrongs, yes.
Very good. And actually, I agree with you. I think it's a good idea to have a comedy as an opening night film, and especially as we don't always associate Russian cinema with comedies, and so it's nice to have something which also defies a little bit the genre expectation. So excellent. So they're the 6 films that are playing, and are all 6 films playing in all cities?
No, we've only been able to do sort of selections here and there. That sort of partially came down to one that, because we've left it so late in the piece, is actually getting space in a cinema schedule. As you know, we normally would screen at Acme in Melbourne, so we couldn't even get into Acme. So the festival this year in Melbourne is screening at Cinema Nova. So you would probably know Melbourne better than me, but from what I was told, that Cinema Nova hopefully is a good location, central location for people to get to.
Definitely.
And the other reason obviously is funding. All distributors want screening fees this year, and so we weren't able to pay for 4 screening fees of a particular title, so we had to split and do some films in some cities and some in another. But there are some that screen sort of, everywhere. Yeah.
Sure. And I suppose you also could have had the temptation to go online for some or all of the films as well, but that in itself creates extra costs and technical issues.
Well, it does create extra costs.
Yeah.
But what I would actually like to do is, if I can sort of give you an insight into what Russian Resurrection would like to do next year, is that we would like to do monthly screenings. Apart from our festival at the end of the year, we would like to do a Russian film as a monthly screening in Sydney and Melbourne, and possibly, Brisbane and Perth, so the cities where we do well in. We would like to do, a Russian film maybe the last Sunday of every month. Sunday afternoon, if you want to go see a Russian film once a month, there's this opportunity to go and see a Russian film. And hopefully the films that, missed out, say in Melbourne this time as part of the mini film festival, it will get a rerun as a monthly screening. But it'll also give us an opportunity to, showcase some films that possibly won't make the final cut next year, but are still worthy films. And by doing it that way, I think we're sort of engaging with our audience. As you know, Russian films unfortunately don't get, theatrical release in Australia very often. Whereas this way, rather than doing it online, I think we're going to give people the opportunity to go to the cinema, see it on a big screen, and do it sort of once a month. Yeah.
I think that's a good plan. Yeah.
So that's our plan, Peter, and hopefully, the audience will get behind it.
Absolutely. And I think it's Russian cinema is so important and so interesting and diverse. So I think a monthly screening next year would be a great idea, and as a prelude then to the fall film festival. So yeah, I like it. Okay, so if people want to book tickets, get more details, if they go to russianresurrection.com, they'll be able to do everything.
Yep. There's direct links from our website onto Cinema Nova. But for people that are probably, more familiar, that are regular patrons of Cinema Nova, I've been also advised to jump onto Cinema Nova website, and they can, find the ticketing links that way as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's some trailers up there for each of the films. So that's good.
Excellent. 6 film screening, or some of the film screening in Melbourne and in other cities, Russian Resurrection Film Festival. Okay, excellent stuff. And Nicholas, before I let you go, have you seen, apart from No Time to Die, have you seen anything else of late that has impressed you in any way, shape or form?
I will answer that, but do you mind me giving a bit of a complaint about No Time to Die? I don't know. Am I allowed to spoil?
Go for it. I've already reviewed it and I found it a bit melancholic for my liking, but tell me what you thought.
I thought that up until the last 15, 20 minutes, we were on more or less a winner for a Bond film because I believe it had lots of Bond elements. So we sort of got back to a really good traditional Bond story, I thought. Some of the personal things, again, I didn't sort of really appreciate. The idea of Bond having a daughter, for instance, to me was over the top and, unnecessary. I thought that the idea of Bond having this one wife on Her Majesty's Secret Service served so well for the whole series that they didn't need to revisit that theme whatsoever. I did like, the gadgets that seem to be back. So that's sort of where I'm getting at. The gadgets are back. I think M and Q had sort of more prominent roles this time, which I appreciated. But the thing that really got to me was the end. I'm sorry to say, but Bond can't die. Bond, Bond doesn't die. I mean,
well, Daniel Craig does.
Yeah, he does. But I mean, why couldn't they, for instance, do you remember the great opening of The Spy Who Loved Me?
Yeah.
Where Roger Moore goes off the cliff skiing and the parachute opens up with the Union Jack. I thought to myself, why couldn't Daniel Craig jump off that ledge? A parachute opens up and that's the end of the film. And it's up to your imagination if he survives or not, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, I suppose.
So anyway, that was.
Yeah, I suppose he was signalling that this is his last Bond, and now they're going to have to find someone else to replace 007.
Yeah, but I mean, Roger Moore left and he didn't die at the end of A View to a Kill. Sean didn't. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't like the ending whatsoever. But a film that I've seen recently.
Yep. Anything. Could be on streaming or on TV, anything at all.
I'm sort of I'm getting through 2 Netflix shows at the moment. One is called You. Okay, sort of it's obviously an American series. I think there's now 4 seasons or something. Basically about this psycho guy that decides to stalk women that he likes, but he sort of goes over the edge, and there's murder involved, and basically he's a nasty character, a sleazebag that you know, it keeps you going. However, what I find with all of these type of series, the other one I'm watching is probably a bit better, is Heist, which I believe is it's on Netflix, but correct me, is it actually a German series, or I can't remember, or is it Spanish? I can't remember.
No, I haven't seen it. Yeah, don't know.
Oh, okay.
Heist.
So yeah,
All right.
that was probably, yeah, what's been sort of, you know, keeping me busy at home.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And James Bond keeping you busy in what he's gotten up to. I must say, just quickly with the James Bond film, the other thing I didn't like was the very sketchy, nasty character that Rami Malek was supposed to be playing. There was very little backstory or understanding, I thought, of why he wants to put a virus around the world. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it was sort of I mean, the only reason was more of a personal vendetta, wasn't it? Whereas you're right there. I think Bond villains normally don't really act because of personal vendettas. They act because they want to dominate, you know, the world. And
of course, who wouldn't?
Yeah. So.
All right, that's fair enough for those comments and recommendations. Russian Resurrection Film Festival in Melbourne, December 17th to the 21st at the Nova Cinema. And we've been speaking to the director of the festival, Nicholas Maksymow. Nicholas, as always, great to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you.
All the best.
And apologies again for last night. Yeah.
All fine. All the best. See you later.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Will do. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.